Chapter 1. The shadows of the French Quarter. The humid air of New Orleans in 1887 clung to Elias Beaumont like a shroud, thick and unrelenting, carrying the faint rot of the Mississippi River and the distant wail of a saxophone from some hidden jazz den. It was the height of summer, and the city pulsed with life, or what passed for it in the underbelly of the Crescent City. Elias, a Creole fisherman of 28, with skin the color of polished mahogany and eyes that held the storm gray of the Gulf, had always felt at home amid the creaking docks and the labyrinthine streets of the French Quarter. But tonight, as the gas lamps flickered to life along Bourbon Street, casting elongated shadows that danced like voodoo spirits, he knew something had shifted. The air tasted wrong, bitter with the scent of graveyard dirt. Elias had come to the voodoo queen herself, Marie Laveau's shadow still lingering in the whispers of the faithful even after her death a decade prior. No, it was her granddaughter, Marie II, who held court in the candlelit backroom of a shotgun house on St. Anne Street. Elias had sought her out not for love potions or luck charms, but for a curse. Yes, a curse. Foolish pride had driven him there. His rival, Henry Duval, a smug Creole planter with a silver tongue and a fleet of steamboats, had stolen Elias' fiancée, Celeste, right from under his nose. Whispers said Henry had bewitched her with promises of silk gowns and grand balls, but Elias knew better. It was betrayal, pure and venomous. "Give me the gris-gris to bind his heart," Elias had begged, his voice a low rumble over the hum of chanting women and the sizzle of herbs in iron pots. Marie II, her face a mask of ageless beauty scarred by ritual scars, had fixed him with eyes like polished obsidian. "Power comes with a price, cher, you want his ruin. You'll pay in shadows." She had handed him a small leather pouch, heavy with bones and feathers, and instructed him to bury it at midnight under the full moon at the edge of Congo Square, whispering Henry's name 3 times while pricking his own thumb with a thorn. He had done it. The moon had hung bloated and red that night, illuminating the moss-draped oaks like skeletal fingers. The soil had been soft, unnaturally so, as if the earth hungered for his offering. Elias had felt a chill then, a whisper on the wind that sounded like Celeste's laughter twisted into a sob. But he pushed it aside, convinced justice would follow. Now 3 weeks later, as Elias trudged home from the docks, with a net of wriggling catfish slung over his shoulder, the first signs crept in like fog off the bayou. His shadow, once a faithful companion, seemed to lag behind him on the cobblestones, stretching longer than the dying light should allow. He paused under a wrought iron balcony, the lacework of ferns overhead dripping condensation like tears. Glancing back, he swore it moved on its own, a subtle twitch, as if testing the boundaries of its tether. "Mon Dieu," he muttered, crossing himself despite his lapsed faith. The streets were alive with revelers, masked figures in top hats and feathers, laughing courtesans in crimson corsets, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages. But Elias felt isolated, as if an invisible veil had dropped between him and the world. A street vendor hawking pralines called out, "Fresh sweets, monsieur, sweet as a lover's kiss." Elias forced a smile, but his reflection in a puddle showed eyes hollowed, cheeks gaunt. Had he lost weight? Impossible. He devoured gumbo at lunch. By the time he reached his cramped attic room above a tavern on Rampart Street, the unease had burrowed deeper. The room was a Spartan affair. A sagging cot, a scarred table with a kerosene lamp, and a crucifix nailed crookedly above the door. Elias lit the lamp, its flame sputtering like a dying breath, and unloaded his catch into a tin basin. The catfish flopped weakly, their glassy eyes accusing. He gutted them with practiced strokes, but his knife slipped, once, twice nicking his palm. Blood welled, dark and sluggish, and as it dripped into the sink, Elias froze. The droplets didn't dilute in the water, they beaded, forming shapes. A face, Celeste's face, mouth open in a silent scream. He recoiled, heart pounding like a Congo drum. "Non, c'est rien," he told himself, scrubbing furiously. But the image lingered in his mind, her features contorted in agony. Sleep evaded him that night. Lying on his cot, the ceiling beams seemed to shift, forming patterns of eyes and serpents. Whispers slithered through the cracks in the walls, Henry's voice, no, deeper, guttural, in a tongue older than French or Creole. You called us, now we call you. Dawn broke grey and sullen, the sun a reluctant smear behind thunderheads. Elias rose, with limbs heavy as lead, his muscles aching from phantom labours. At the docks, his boat, the Bayou Whisper, rocked gently against the pilings, but when he cast off, the oars felt wrong in his hands, sticky, as if coated in sap. The water, usually a murky brown, gleamed with an oily iridescence, reflecting not the sky but fractured images. Henry's plantation house ablaze, Celeste dancing in flames, his own hands clawing at shadows. By midday, the curse's teeth sank in fully. A storm brewed unannounced, lightning cracking the sky like a whip. Elias fought the tiller as waves slapped the hull, but it was the visions that terrified him most. In the spray, he saw lower, voodoo spirits rising from the depths. Baron Samedi, with his top hat and skeletal grin, Erzulie Frida weeping blood-tinted tears. They pointed at him, laughing in voices that echoed inside his skull. Thief of hearts, pay the debt. He beached the Bayou Whisper on a muddy spit, gasping, soaked to the bone. Stumbling into the tree line, Elias collapsed against a cypress knee, its bark rough as grave markers. The air hummed with cicadas, but beneath it, a rhythmic chanting pulsed from the earth itself. His hand, still bandaged from the night before, throbbed. Unwrapping it, he saw the cut had not healed. Instead, it wept a black ichor that twisted into letters, Creole patois, Tun omba ti trahit, your shadow betrays you. Panic clawed at his throat. Elias fled back to the city, the quarter's bustle a mocking cacophony. He needed answers. The only place left was the source, Marie I's sanctum. But as he navigated the alleys, his shadow betrayed its malice. It slithered ahead, coiling around lampposts like a serpent, tripping a passing child who fell screaming into the gutter. The boy looked up, eyes wide with terror. "Monsieur, your shadow, it touched me." Elias ran, the accusation burning. By dusk, he pounded on the door of the shotgun house, the knocker, a carved skull clacking like teeth. Marie I answered, her presence filling the threshold like smoke. "Elias Beaumont, you returned so soon, the spirits are restless tonight." "It's the curse," he gasped, collapsing to his knees. "It's turned on me, my shadow, it's alive. It hurts people, take it back, I beg you." She regarded him with pity laced with warning, her beads rattling like bones. "Foolish boy, voodoo is no toy. You asked for binding, the lower heard hunger in your heart. Now they feast on your regret. To lift it, you must face the heart of the curse, in the bayou, where the dead walk and the living fear to tread. Find the Vive of Erzulie, buried with the first queen's bones. But beware, your shadow will fight you every step." As she traced a protective symbol on his forehead with ash, Elias felt a temporary reprieve. The whispers quieted, the air lightened. But deep in his gut, he knew the respite was fleeting. The night deepened, and with it, the shadows lengthened. New Orleans, with its jazz and juju, had claimed him, and the bayou called, its voice a siren's wail. Chapter 2, Bayou's Visitation. The bayou swallowed Elias whole. It's more a tangle of cypress knees and Spanish moss that dangled like funeral veils from branches twisted into agonized shapes. It was the dead of night when he set out from the edge of the city, the Bayou Whisper loaded with nothing but a lantern, a machete, and a flask of rum to steady his nerves. Marie I's words echoed in his skull like a death knell. The Vive of Erzulie lies in the heart of the drowned graveyard, where the waters claim the unburied. Your shadow will hunt you there, cher, sever it if you must, but remember, a man without shadow is half a ghost. The full moon, now a sickle of silver, sliced through the canopy, turning the water into a mirror of fractured nightmares. Elias poled the flat-bottomed boat deeper into the labyrinth, the pole sinking into muck that sucked greedily, as if the swamp itself resented his intrusion. Fireflies pulsed like errant souls, their green glow illuminating glimpses of eyes, gators' amber slits, or worse, the luminous stares of the restless dead. The air was a stew of decay, fetid blooms, rotting cypress, and the metallic tang of blood from unseen kills. Every splash of his pole sent ripples that birthed whispers, fragments of Creole lullabies warped into curses. Veens, moan fils. Come to Mama Legba's feast. His shadow, that treacherous fiend, had grown bolder since leaving the quarter. No longer content to trail, It now detached in fits, slinking across the water's surface like spilled ink, reforming with a wet slap against the hull. Elias felt its tug, a phantom pull at his heels, as if it yearned to drag him under. He glanced down, and there it was, not his silhouette, but a distorted parody, elongated limbs ending in claws, a head crowned with writhing serpents. It mimicked his strokes, but inverted, pushing the boat backward when he advanced. "Leave me be," he snarled, slashing at it with the machete. The blade passed through water and shadow alike, but the effort stirred something. Bubbles erupted from the depths, and a hand, pale, bloated, fingers pruned like week-old fruit, breached the surface, grasping for the gunwale. Elias jerked back, the boat rocking perilously. The hand belonged to no living thing. Its nails were caked with grave soil, and etched into the palm was a vive symbol, a heart pierced by arrows, Erzulie's mark, but inverted, a sigil of heartbreak. Heart pounding, Elias poled harder, the sweat stinging his eyes. The bayou narrowed, vines snaking overhead like nooses, brushing his shoulders with leaves that felt like cold fingers. Memories assaulted him unbidden. Celeste's laughter in the jasmine-scented gardens of Henry's plantation, her dark curls unbound under lantern light, promising eternity. Then the betrayal, finding her in his arms, silk whispering against skin, her eyes glazed with whatever poison Henry had fed her soul. The curse was meant for him, Elias reminded himself, but guilt festered like swamp gas. Had his jealousy summoned this, or had the lower seen in his heart a darkness deeper than Henry's theft? A low growl rumbled from the mangroves, freezing him mid-stroke. The lantern's flame dipped, casting the world in stuttering shadows. From the underbrush emerged a figure, or what passed for one. It was a rougarou, the werewolf of Cajun lore, but twisted by voodoo, fur matted with feathers and beads, eyes glowing like embers in a skull half flesh, half bone. It loped on all fours, sniffing the air, its muzzle lifting to howl, a sound that was half beast, half woman's wail. Elias' blood ran cold. He knew the tailies. Rougarou hunted the cursed, feasting on their regrets until dawn stripped them to human frailty. The creature lunged, paws splashing into the shallows, jaws unhinging to reveal teeth filed to points. Elias swung the machete wildly, the blade biting air as the boat spun. His shadow seized the moment, uncoiling like a whip to lash at his ankles, tripping him into the bilge. Water sloshed over his boots, icy and alive with wriggling things, leeches. No smaller, like animated tattoos peeling from drowned skin. The rougarou's claws raked the side of the boat, splintering wood, and Elias smelled its breath. Jasmine and decay, Celeste's perfume mingled with wrought. With a desperate heave, he thrust the lantern forward. The flame kissed the beast's fur, igniting a cascade of blue fire, lower fire, unquenchable. The rougarou shrieked, recoiling into the night, its form dissolving into smoke that reeked of burning herbs. But victory was Pyrrhic. The lantern shattered, plunging Elias into darkness save for the moon's cruel gleam. Now blind to the water's perils, he felt his shadow's glee, a vibration through the hull like mocking laughter. Hours blurred into a fever dream. The bayou seemed to fold in on itself, paths looping back to where he'd begun, or so it felt. Elias sang old work songs to keep madness at bay, his voice hoarse against the chorus of frogs and night birds that mimicked human cries. J'ai vu la loupe, le renard et la belette, but the words twisted on his tongue, emerging as pleas. Celeste, forgive me, Henry, damn you. Dawn crept in reluctant, painting the mist rose and gold. Exhausted, Elias beached the boat on a hummock overgrown with ferns. He collapsed amid the roots, gulping rum that burned like absolution, but rest was denied. As sunlight pierced the canopy, his shadow shrank, cowering from the light, yet it whispered still, promises of the drowned graveyard ahead. There amid sunken tombs and gnarled willows lay the vive. But to claim it, he'd need more than steel, he'd need to confront the love he'd cursed, the heart he'd broken. A rustle in the undergrowth snapped him alert. Not the rougarou this time, but footsteps, human, deliberate. A woman emerged from the mist, her skirts muddied, a shawl of black lace draped over shoulders scarred with ritual marks. Her face was veiled, but her voice cut through like a blade. You seek Erzulie's tear, fisherman, the lower do not give lightly, What will you offer in return? Elias scrambled to his feet, machete raised. Who was she? A priestess. A trap sent by his shadow. The bayou held its breath, waiting for his answer. Chapter 3. Erzulie's tears. The woman's veil fluttered in the bayou's fetid breeze, revealing glimpses of a face etched by time and ritual. High cheekbones shadowed by coal, lips painted crimson as fresh blood. She lowered the fabric slowly, her eyes locking onto Elias with an intensity that pinned him like a butterfly to cork. I am Ursult, daughter of the waters, she said, her voice a silken rasp, laced with the cadence of forgotten African tongues. The Loa sent me, fisherman, to weigh your soul against the debt. Offer me truth, and I'll guide you to the drowned graveyard. Lie, and the Rougarou will seem a fond memory. Elias lowered his machete, though his grip tightened on the hilt, knuckles whitening. Truth, what truth could sate spirits who fed on regret? He glanced at his shadow, now a quivering puddle at his feet, its edges fraying like smoke from a snuffed candle. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a boiler, coiling tentatively toward Ursult's boots. She stamped once, sharply, and it recoiled with a whimper that echoed in Elias' bones. I offer my confession, he said, voice cracking like dry reeds. I cursed Henry not for love lost, but for the pride he stole. Celeste was my light, but I dimmed her with chains of jealousy. The Grigri was my venom, spat in the dark. Take it if it pleases the Loa. Ursult's laugh was a cascade of bells, chilling in its mirth. Truth is a start share, but Erzulie demands more tears for tears. Come, the graveyard wakes at noon. She turned, her skirts whispering over the hummock like waves lapping ashore, and Elias followed, the machete slung at his belt, a cold comfort. The bayou path she led him on was no path at all, a weave of half-submerged logs and vine bridges that swayed underfoot, groaning like the damned. Dragonflies hummed hymns around her head, their iridescent wings tracing vives in the air, symbols of crossroads and broken vows. As they pressed on, the air thickened, heavy with the perfume of night-blooming jasmine twisted with the sour reek of stagnation. Elias' wounds from the night throbbed anew, the black ichor seeping through his bandages, drawing flies that buzzed accusations. Thief, betrayer, visions flickered at the edges of his sight. Celeste, not as he remembered her radiant, but gaunt, her skin mottled with bruises like thumbprints from an unseen hand. She reached for him through the mist, her fingers dissolving into water that splashed his face, cold as a grave's kiss. Tell me of her, Ursult demanded without turning, the woman whose heart you bound. Elias swallowed bile. Celeste Arceneaux, a seamstress with hands like lace, eyes like bayou stars. We met at a quadroon ball, dancing till the candles guttered. She chose me over silk and safety, until Henry's whispers poisoned the well. I saw them in the lantern glow of his veranda, her laughter a dagger. The curse was to make him feel that rip, that hollow ache. Ursult nodded, plucking a bloom from a low-hanging branch and crushing it in her palm. Crimson petals bled between her fingers, staining them like guilt. Love is Erzulie's domain, but scorn is her whip. You wielded it poorly, and now it lashes back. Look there, the veil thins. The drowned graveyard materialized like a fever hallucination. A sprawl of tilted crosses and crumbling vaults half sunk in brackish pools, willows weeping grey tendrils into the water. Fog clung to the stones like mourning shrouds, and the silence was broken only by the plop of unseen creatures and the distant toll of a phantom bell. Ursult knelt at the water's edge, tracing a circle in the mud with a bone hairpin. The first queen's bones lie beneath the weeping willow, marked by her vive, but the waters guard it jealously. Dive, Elias. Claim it with a tear of your own. He stripped to his breeches, the machete left on the bank, and waded in. The water was a lover's embrace turned stranglehold, warm at the surface, plunging to icy depths that clawed at his lungs. Schools of minnows darted like silver needles, nipping at his skin, drawing pinpricks of blood that clouded the murk. Deeper, the bottom revealed itself, a carpet of bones, human and animal mingled, picked clean by time and teeth. Skulls grinned up at him, empty sockets brimming with silt, and among them, half-buried, the glint of metal, a locket. No, the vive, a silver plate etched with Erzulie's heart, arrows piercing its center, encrusted with pearls that wept milky fluid. As his fingers brushed it, the water boiled. Shadows erupted from the depths, not his own, but legions, drowned slaves, their chains rusted links looping like serpents, faces bloated and eyeless, mouths gaping in silent dirges. They swarmed him, cold hands gripping his limbs, pulling him down into the ossuary. "Join us," they gurgled, voices bubbling through the murk. "The cursed belong below." Elias thrashed, lungs burning, the vive slipping from his grasp. In the chaos, his shadow dove in after him, solidifying into a noose around his throat, its claws, now real, taloned, raking his chest. Gasping, he broke the surface once, glimpsing Usul chanting atop the bank, her arms raised like a supplicant. But her eyes, gone feral, glowing amber, betrayed her. Was she ally or architect? The drowned pulled him under again, and in the black, Celeste appeared, not victim but judge. Her form ethereal, draped in weeds, a crown of thorns on her brow. "You cursed us both, Elias, my heart for his, now yours fractures for mine." Desperation birthed fury. Elias clawed at the shadow's form, nails breaking on its inky hide, but it laughed, a gurgle that filled his ears. The vive sank deeper, taunting. With a final, ragged breath, he surrendered, not to death, but to sorrow. A tear escaped his eye, hot and salt, mingling with the bayou. The water stilled. The drowned recoiled, their grips loosening as the tear traced a glowing path downward, illuminating the vive like a beacon. He dove after it, unhindered now, seizing the plate. Its surface burned his palm, searing the inverted sigil from his flesh, replacing it with Erzulie's true mark, a heart mended, arrows withdrawn. Surfacing, coughing brackish horror, Elias clutched his prize. But Usul was gone, vanished into the mist, leaving only her hairpins stabbed into the mud, inscribed, "The tear binds what the curse broke. Return to the queen, or drown in debt eternal." The sun dipped low, painting the graveyard in bloody hues. Elias' shadow, diminished, clung to his heels once more, but it trembled, as if fearing the light within him now. Yet the bayou whispered warnings. The ritual was half done. New Orleans awaited, and with it, Henry's reckoning or his own unraveling. Chapter 4. The Queen's account. The bayou whisper cut through the twilight like a knife through silk. Elias poling with arms that screamed from the ordeal, the vive clutched against his chest like a talisman against the gathering storm. The silver plate pulsed warmly, its etched heart a counterpoint to the chill that still gnawed at his bones from the drowned depths. Usul's parting words haunted him, "Return to the Queen, or drown in debt eternal." Marie I's sanctum on St. Anne Street loomed in his mind's eye, but so did the specters of his choices, Henry's smug grin, Celeste's phantom touch. The bayou relinquished him grudgingly, its vines snagging the hull like reluctant lovers, whispers fading to the lap of waves against the pilings as New Orleans lights pricked the horizon like wary eyes. Dusk bled into night as he beached the boat at the familiar docks, the French Quarter alive with its nocturnal frenzy. Flambeaux bearers swinging torches that painted revelers in infernal glows, the wail of fiddles from open-air cafes, the scent of chicory coffee mingling with opium smoke from shadowed doorways. But Elias moved through it as a ghost, his shadow a furtive stain that darted from lamppost to alley, testing its chains. It had grown cunning, feeding on his exhaustion. Twice it lunged, coiling around a beggar's ankle to trip him into the gutter, or brushing a courtesan's skirts to send her fleeing with a shriek. "Le diable marque avec toi," the woman cried, crossing herself. Elias pressed on, the vives heat a beacon drawing him inexorably to the shotgun house. The door creaked open before he knocked, Marie I's silhouette framed by candlelight that flickered like hesitant confessions. Her eyes, those obsidian pools, widened fractionally at the sight of the plate. "You bring Erzulie's grace share," the lower whisper of a tear shed in sorrow, "but the binding is not broken, your shadow hungers still." She drew him inside, the air thick with incense and the low thrum of drums from hidden Congo Square. Women in white robes chanted softly, their voices weaving a net of protection, but Elias felt the curse's barbs retract only to strike anew. His reflection in a brass mirror showed veins black as ink creeping from his neck, the shadow's tendrils burrowing inward. "To lift it," Marie intoned, grinding herbs in a mortar that ground like teeth, You must unmake the gree at the crossroads of heart and hate. Confront the one you cursed, offer the Vive's men to his soul, or yours unravels. But beware, the lower demand balance, blood for blood, regret for ruin. She anointed his forehead with oil scented of myrrh and magnolia, the rite sending shivers through him like fevered dreams. Visions assailed, Celeste, whole and radiant, beckoning from Henry's veranda, then twisted, her form merging with his shadow, a hybrid horror of silk and serpents. Elias fled the sanctum into the moonless night, the Vive hidden beneath his shirt, burning like a brand. Henry Duval's plantation lay on the city's outskirts, a white-columned behemoth mocking the bayou's humility with its manicured lawns and slave quarters now emptied by whispers of freedom. Guards patrolled the gates, but Elias' shadow, ever the traitor, slithered ahead, unlocking the latch with inky fingers that left frost on the iron. He slipped through the gardens, jasmine heavy in the air, a mockery of stolen nights. The veranda glowed with lantern light, and there they were. Henry, resplendent in a brocade vest, his arm around Celeste's waist as they swayed to a gramophone's tinny waltz. Her eyes, once stars, were dull, fixed on some distant horizon. Henry Duval, Elias' voice cracked the night like thunder, machete drawn, Vive gleaming in his fist. The couple whirled, Celeste gasping, her hand flying to her throat where a locket, his locket, hung like an accusation. Henry's face drained of color, then twisted into a sneer. Beaumont, come to grovel for scraps. The bayous made you feral moan army. But as words flew like daggers, accusations of theft, betrayal, poisoned affections, the air thickened, the curse uncoiling its final coil. Elias' shadow detached fully, swelling to monstrous proportions, a colossus of writhing darkness that engulfed the veranda in eclipse. It lashed out, tendrils whipping Henry to the ground, coiling around Celeste's legs to drag her screaming into the void. The debt, it roared, a chorus of drowned voices, Baron Samedi's cackle threading through. Elias lunged, the Vive raised high, its light piercing the gloom like dawn's first ray. Erzulie, witness my tear. Mend what I broke. The plate shattered against the shadow's core, silver shards exploding in a nova of pearlescent fire. The darkness howled, contracting like a dying star, fragments peeling away to reveal. Not defeat, but revelation. The shadow reformed, smaller, humbled, Elias' own, cleansed. But in its death throes, it spat truth. Visions flooded Henry and Celeste, unveiling the curse's web. Henry saw his manipulations, the potions slipped into wine, Celeste glimpsed Elias' grief-born malice. She staggered free, tears carving tracks through her makeup. Elias, what have we wrought? Henry rose, not with fury but hollow-eyed contrition. The lower, they spoke through you. No blows were struck. Instead, a pact forged in moonlight, Henry's vow to release Celeste, Elias' promise of silence on the shadow's cast. The Vive's remnants, ground to dust, were scattered at the veranda's edge, a Vive traced in earth. A heart whole, arrows turned to doves. Dawn gilded the spires of New Orleans as Elias walked the levee alone, the curse's weight lifted like fog burned away. His shadow trailed faithfully now, a companion once more. Celeste's farewell note, slipped into his pocket by dawn's light, read, "Forgive us all share. The bayou heals, but hearts remember." The city stirred, jazz notes rising like prayers. Elias Beaumont was free, not unscarred but whole. In the Crescent City, where voodoo wove with the warp of the world, some curses bound tighter than chains, others, confronted in the dark, unraveled into grace. Epilogue years slipped through the levees like silt after a flood, carrying Elias Beaumont into the twilight of the 1890s, where New Orleans' pulse quickened with the rumble of streetcars and the faint echo of emancipation's unkept promises. The curse's scar lingered, a faint tremor in his shadow on moonlit nights, a whisper in the bayou's breeze that tasted of regret, but it no longer clawed. Elias mended nets by day, his hands steady, and by evening he wandered Congo Square, not as supplicant, but storyteller, sharing tales of lower and lost loves to wide-eyed children and weary laborers. Celeste had vanished into the city's folds, rumors painting her as a seamstress in Treme, her fingers stitching Vives into hems for the faithful. Henry Duval's empire crumbled under scandals unearthed by the curse's final gasp, whispers of embezzled fortunes and shadowed dealings that left him a hollow shell, wandering the docks with eyes haunted by drowned faces. They crossed paths once, in a fog-shrouded market, a nod, no words, the air thick with unspoken absolution. Elias never sought Marie I again, the voodoo queen's line faded into legend, her shotgun house a haunt for tourists chasing ghosts. But on All Saints' Eve, when the veil thinned once more, he felt it, the pull of Erzulie's tear, a warmth in his palm where the vive had burned. A new generation danced in the square, drums throbbing like reborn hearts, and Elias smiled, knowing the bayou's secrets were not chains, but threads in the grand weave. Yet in the quiet hours, as gas lamps hissed their lullabies, his shadow would stir, curling like a question mark. For in New Orleans, where jazz weeps and the dead envy the living, no curse is ever truly lifted, only passed, like a melody, to the next soul bold enough to listen.